And welcome back to the KidFirst Sports Podcast. This is your KidFirst host, Coach Dave Vassilaros. And we are on episode 3 of our series on recruiting. What do I do my freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior years? The first 2 have been amazing. If you missed them, please go back and listen. Elliot Leonard from RecruitFluency is dropping knowledge. Parents, you have to hear this. Kids, you have to hear this. More importantly, you should do something about it, right? Knowledge is free. Action is power, people. We are going to jump in on our junior year. Elliot Leonard is back again because he's a gentleman and a scholar, and he's going to help us learn about the most important year in recruiting in high school. Elliot, welcome.
Thanks so much. Looking forward to this. This is the whole, what do they say, kit and caboodle?
I don't know what that is. I've never actually observed a caboodle in my whole life. I feel like that's something that we should research. I'm going to go on ChatGPT when we're done.
This is where it all happens, right? This is the year that's really impactful. I'm so happy to jump into it and get down to the nitty gritty.
Yep. And so what you can expect is the 3 and maybe 4 highlights are the most important things to focus on as a junior. These build on what we've already talked about as freshman and sophomore. It builds on it. If you haven't done those first 2 years, those 3 things of those 2 years, you're going to struggle coming into your junior year because that stuff still has to be done. Let's get into it. At this point, you've widened your net. You've been on campus. You've raised your levels. You've upped your game on your socials, your emails, and your videos. Okay, walking into my junior year, Elliot, guide me.
This is the year to become very direct and learn how to ask college coaches the hard questions that you don't necessarily want the answers to, which are some of the reasons why we tend to not ask them. Let me give you an example. We need to be direct in whether or not the coach believes we're a good fit for their program. Most student athletes are not going to ask that because they don't want to hear no. When you don't ask that question, you go into purgatory, which is even worse. Because when you're in purgatory, you don't know what's going on. You're missing opportunities on the back end because you're hoping and grasping at things that may or may not come your way in the future. So when you're writing to college coaches, when you're on the phone with college coaches, you need to be very clear in what you're asking them, how you're asking it to them, making sure that you're being respectful, but also really pressing them to give you an answer of whether or not you're a good fit for that program so that you can then move forward in whichever way you can move forward in, depending upon their answer. So that is first and foremost. Get comfortable being uncomfortable speaking to college coaches.
All right, mind blown. Hang on. This sounds a lot like sales. Okay, if anyone listening has been in sales, what you just heard was no. You're saying that there's a resource allocation question. So many colleges and coaches and programs.
Yeah.
If I'm trying to get everybody's attention, but I don't know who actually likes me or cares, I'm going to waste valuable resource. I'm not going to do 12 highlight videos that are specific to the college if I'm talking to 75 colleges. So you're saying narrow it down, get to know. What can a kid expect to feel, to go through when they get their first no?
Life stinks sometimes. And very often when we are high school age kids, and we've been brought up and we've been really fortunate from a good family, we don't know too much disappointment. Some more than others for sure. We need to be able to come into this process without an expectation of what level. We should be coming into this process from freshman, sophomore, junior year with the expectation that you want to play at the next level and then being open to interpretation of what that is going to be based on the assessment from college coaches who are going to be interested in you or not. Something that I always live by is expectations are premeditated resentments. So when we have an expectation that we're going to get a certain outcome from whatever it is, from a college coach, a decision, and we don't get that, we then become resentful. And we see it all the time in this process. Student athletes have that expectation. They then get resentful. And then instead of having an opportunity, because they were more open-minded and they went with the process and they had an open heart to it, they never play soccer again. They don't even play pickup soccer when they're 60 years old because they're so disgruntled. I know I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but not having an expectation is really important. There's going to be a lot of disappointment throughout this process, and you need to be okay with that, and you need to take it on and mature from it. But what I will tell you is there's so much upside and there's so much opportunity that the disappointment is fleeting once you see this through to fruition, because there is a place for everyone if you stay with it and if you're consistent about the process.
Parents, prepare your kids. And if they've been, by the way, if they've been doing the process that Elliot's outlined as a freshman and as a sophomore, they will have already gotten probably some no's. They probably would have already heard, hey, thanks for reaching out. It's probably not a good fit. But prepare your kids. The first no from a college coach that they really wanted, or maybe they were attached to, this is like the first time you get that, it's going to be painful. And they're going to self-doubt, and they're going to maybe spiral, and they're going to stop wanting to send emails to other people. And like, what's the point? The second no is only going to hurt half as much. The third no isn't going to barely hurt at all. And by the fourth no, you're going to be like, sweet, I can take that off my list. Let's get to the fifth one. So there's a process, right? Like the process is we need disappointment. Remember, Elliot said there's a place for everybody who really wants to get to that level and does the work. How many places do we need? Let's not be selfish here. Let's not be grabby. I only need one.
Right.
I only need one. If I'm talking to 50, that means I can count on 49 no's.
Correct.
I only need one yes.
The one thing I want to point out here, Dave, that I think is super important. The parent plays such an integral role in the way the student athlete perceives or reacts to that disappointment. What we see very often is parents get just as upset with the process, especially because this is no longer in their control. When we lose control as human beings, the first thing we want to do is try to control it. When student athletes start getting no's from college coaches or disappointing emails, the one thing parents I really beg of you to do is be the adult in the room, and don't, even if you have the frustrations because you're human, I would do my best to not allow your child to see that, because it's just going to take them and spiral them out of control. And I've seen it happen all the time, and it's really frustrating from my perspective, because you're doing all this work and then it's just down the drain. There's no conspiracy theories in college soccer. College coaches get paid to win. So if your son or daughter is going to be an asset to their program, they're going to recruit them.
Okay, this is not that different from some of the stuff I talk about in my KidFirst heart lessons, having a KidFirst philosophy where you teach your kids, I believe in you, right? The rule number one, I believe in you, either as a parent or as a coach. And what that really is saying, especially as a parent, is I love you. I love you. Number two, you don't have to fear your mistakes, or in this case, you don't have to fear your failures. And you might view being told no by a coach as a failure. Okay, that's fair. That's a disappointment. I love how you said that. Get used to disappointment. What is that from Princess Bride? I think he says that. Sorry, Highness, get used to disappointment. And the third one is my performance is not my value. My ability to get yeses from coaches is not a reflection of my value as who I am. It may say something about the fit. It may say something about maybe my level's not there. It's not who I am. And finally, and this is really important, my enemy is my lesser self. So if you're a parent in a room and your kid just got a no from a coach where they had their heart set on it, you have a chance to teach that child. Their enemy is not that coach. As a parent, your enemy is not that coach. Your enemy is the lesser part of you who's going to react in a way that is self-defeating, self-doubting, that's going to drag you down, instead of saying, I'm going to take my 5 seconds, I'm going to take my 30 seconds to be mad, like mad. And then 30 seconds, minute later, I'm going to start prepping for my next email. That is our chance, parents, to teach and reinforce these heart lessons. Okay, I hijacked you, sorry, but I think it was applicable.
where I grew up, when someone was saying something like really insightful, you would just go, mm-hmm. So that's what I'm as you were doing that. Either way.
I love it. Thank you. So first one here, we're talking about ask direct questions, the questions that we're afraid to ask. Is there a fit for me in your program? That shouldn't be your first email, by the way, right? That shouldn't be the email you send to the coach the first time saying, hey, this is who I am. Here's my first highlight reel. Am I a fit for your program? What's the coach going to say?
You're a freshman. I can't even talk to you if you're doing it the right way, right?
But if you're a junior, if you've skipped all of this and you're just coming in as a junior and you're trying to make up time,
there won't be a response because you're not going about the process the right way. You're not formulating and creating a relationship with these coaches. And that's when people get back to you, when you have a relationship with them. When you've had that prior conversation and they know that they're almost indebted to you in some way because there's that relationship. And that is key to this process as well, when you can sink your teeth into a coach or a program in a really positive way, because they're going to want to get back to you. And that's happened many times. Coach at UCLA has gotten back to some of our student athletes and said, listen, thank you so much for the candid email. I'm going to be candid with you. I know it's not what you want to hear, but best of luck with the process.
Thinking of relationship building, and I think this is really interesting. What would you think of if you were a college coach and I had been sending emails to you and I get video of your latest game and I pull out 3 or 4 highlights from that game or clips from that game and I comment on it and I say, hey, I was watching this person who plays in my position and I saw him or her do these 5 things in your game that I absolutely love and I learned from. In other words, is there a way to engage at that level, or is that a little too much?
It's a little too much, but it's a little too much too early. It would be spot on once there was some interest and you're now meeting the coach in person. Maybe you're coming on a visit and they want to get to know you a little bit more. That's to a coach's ear, to be able to have a kid that involved and interested, it would be fantastic. But don't do that too early. They might think you're a little crazy.
All right, so we got our refine your emails, right? Refine them and start asking direct questions. Number 2, what's the next one?
We're in junior year, so expand the outreach once again. Yeah, and we said this earlier in a previous episode, but if you want to play college, you need to be reaching out to pretty much every college coach in the country because you're going to get crowdsourced sort of feedback at what levels you should be playing at, and you never know what opportunities are going to come your way. So expand that, be consistent, just like we said previously, because that's the only way to be successful.
Okay, so that's a pretty big step up from freshman and sophomore years where you're a little more targeted in your emailing. Now you're saying blast.
Yeah, blast with purpose is what I'm saying. If you've already done a lot of the grunt work because you've listened to the KidFirst podcast and you're following along, you may have a lot of interest from 15, 20 schools. Then you don't have to go out and blast with a purpose, right? Then you could be pretty specific about looking into different schools that offer different things that might be on your radar in the future. So it's really going to be dependent upon where you sit within your own process and being able to take a look at that objectively and say, okay, I haven't had much luck. Let's expand it, maybe target some lower level schools and see, maybe we'll get more feedback from them. So be smart about how you're going down this process. Just reflect on it. And once you reflect on it, you'll see there's different trajectories that you'll need to go in and they'll be pretty evident to you.
Okay, so if I'm going to refine what I thought in the beginning, as opposed to now let's blast out, it's take a look and see where's your traction now. Yeah. If you've got 2 schools that are interested in you, probably need to bump that up in terms of percentages. If you've got 10, you're probably pretty close, but maybe let's get a couple more. If you're at 20, you're good. But generally speaking, don't put all your eggs in 1 or 2 baskets.
Yeah, and what are those conversations you're having with that staff sound and look like? Are they serious conversations? Are you talking money? Are you talking what dorms you want to live in potentially, right? If it's that level, then those are real conversations. If you have 20 sort of like, hey, can't wait to see you play in December, again, we can't count those as genuine opportunities that are going to pan out.
Thank you for clarifying that. Parents, kids, I can imagine that when you get any email from a coach, you get excited. I would. I get it.
Best email in the world.
Be honest with yourselves on what you're hearing back. If they're responding, that's a good sign. If they aren't being committed or really talking about concrete logistical next steps, maybe there's something there and you need to ask that direct question and say, hey, wait, I appreciate you talking with me. Am I really a fit for this program? And let them say, I love talking with you, or you've been very professional or whatever, but no. Let's move to the next big point as a junior.
For me, it's highlight videos. We spoke about it. If there was one piece of information that I came onto your podcast and said that every year and just in general, what is going to shape your college recruitment process, it's going to be your highlight video. And parents do not understand. If you're going to invest in something, invest in a highlight video. Don't invest in the software that's going to show you what match you are, percentage, right? The highlight video is your portal to getting seen. So I'll just break down that process real quick. No coach, unless they're stumbling at a tournament, is going to just go start looking for players on the field, right? They do their research. So what's coming inbound to them? So that highlight video needs to pique interest so that college coaches are excited after they finish that video, excited to go see you in person, because that's the second step. If that highlight video does not accomplish getting the coach off his butt into the seats and watching you in live action consistently, it didn't do its job. And it doesn't matter if that highlight video is 1.5 minutes or 5 minutes. 1.5 minutes of incredible, high octane, if you will. Keeping the college coaches wanting to watch more is so much more impactful than a 5-minute drawn out video that is just, by minute 2, I'm ready to just turn it off. I'd much rather it be shorter and hit harder, because your one objective is to get them out to the field to see you play in person.
Couple questions. Should these highlights be taken from your most recent play, or can you go back a year or something?
Oh, if possible. So what we do is when we're younger, we create like a foundation through 9th, 10th, 11th. You have this foundation. And then once you have this high octane highlight video that's anywhere from 2-3 minutes, then you can start taking some of the older stuff out and putting in some of the newer stuff. Because the newer stuff is always going to be paramount, because you're probably playing it at the best level, bigger, stronger, faster as you go.
Okay, parents, I'm sitting here as a parent and thinking to myself, it never occurred to me how important the highlight video was and to what the purpose was. There is a specific purpose or specific outcome that the highlight video should generate, which is get that coach to want to watch you play live.
Just like sales. Bring it back
Just
to
like sales. Oh my gosh, I know. I'm gonna have to write a whole blog post about how recruiting is basically building your own business, and you got to build the product, you got to do the marketing, you got to do the sales, you got to get the customer service, you got to get the feedback, like the whole thing. It's really quite something. All right, highlight videos. Look at another specific question. Is this now purely highlights? These are the best bits of my play, not, oh, I messed up here, but I want to include that. I'm not perfect.
No, it is perfect. As perfect as you can get. And it's, once again, because the objective is to get that coach to see you play. The coach knows you're not perfect, right? The coach knows no one's perfect, but you don't need to showcase it to him. If I'm selling you something, that's a Ferrari, but we know it's got some kinks and stuff too. I'm showing you all the good stuff. You'll figure out the 2% on the back end. That's the mindset that you need to have. And a lot of parents struggle with that significantly. I've been told by parents that I'm lying to them when I bring things up like this. This is a sales process. That can't be any more clear. You're selling yourself to a program where a coach's livelihood depends upon how well he recruits players. He's taking that seriously. Don't show him anything he doesn't need to see. He'll figure that out by himself on the back end.
Okay, awesome. Our last episode after we do the senior year is going to be all about tools. What tools are out there to help all you parents and kids do these things? Because look, we all know no one knows how to do all this stuff. We all have real lives, right? We've got jobs and other kids and we're volunteer, whatever it is. There are tools out there, and we're going to talk about those in the future. If you're intimidated by the make an amazing highlight video, that's tools. You don't have to do everything yourself. Okay, we got our first three. What's our fourth and final big point for our junior year?
Switching things up. It's not just about email, right? We need to be professionally persistent, and that doesn't mean we need to write 4 emails a week. Let's change it up, right? Let's reach out to college coaches on the phone. Let's leave voice messages if we need to. Be dynamic and find different ways to get in front of college coaches. When I was coaching at FAU, several times we had knocks on our door while we were in a meeting, and it would be someone who was interested in our program, who was on a tour for the university. And we always invited them in, told them a little bit about the program. I would take them on a tour of the athletic facility. That's okay, as long as you are professional and respectful of the coaches and the program's time. And once again, don't have an expectation that that's going to happen to you. But if you don't put yourself out there, if you're not visible, if you don't have exposure off the field, on the field, you're going to struggle with this process. That final piece is do whatever you need to do so that you're known by the coaches you need to be known by.
Get out of your comfort zone. The emails, we've done a lot of focus on emails. You're good at emails now. Do the scary thing. And is picking up the phone scary for these kids? Is this like a bigger obstacle than maybe we adults think it is?
Couple of things here. Statistics around this. As a former college coach at Florida Atlantic University, a mid-level Division I program, anywhere roughly 200 during the busy season, 500 emails a week that I would need to go through as the assistant coach. Not feasible. It's not possible. So don't always get mad at coaches when they don't get back to your email. Sometimes they're inundated. How many phone calls do you think, Dave, we averaged a week as opposed to emails?
Five phone calls a week.
5 to 7. That might have been a month too. It was just a completely different animal. But the kids who called, I remember that because I remembered when I was calling, which comes to my story. The first phone call I ever made was to the head coach of Penn State. And I was so nervous. I blacked out after hello.
Come on.
I didn't know who I was talking to. I didn't know his name. I hung up the phone and I didn't get recruited by Penn State. I'm not kidding you. I had his physical reaction. It's really difficult. And when I used to work primarily one-on-one with student athletes, and a lot of that time was allocated towards doing these mock phone calls, just like you would in a sales room, right? And I would be the coach and I just give them like a real scenario. Sometimes I'd mess with them a little bit just to get them out of their discomfort. If you can create that environment with a friend, if you can create that environment with a parent and do some of those mock phone calls, it's going to be such an integral part of your recruitment process because you're going to be able to articulate yourself. You're going to be able to ask those tough questions because you've already gone through them and there's been repetition there. It's super scary, but if you are looking to play at the college level, that's the discomfort we were speaking about that you need to get through.
You got to get through it. Hey, parents, maybe have your kids practice by having to call and make their own doctor's appointments. When they got your order wrong and make them call and deal with it at the restaurant or whatever. Seriously, since my kids were really young, we have done things like that. We make them make the phone calls. Kids these days hate that. They hate that crap. But my kids, to their credit, they are all very proficient now in picking up the phone. They may not like it, but they can do it. So parents, that's a really easy little tip from Elliot, like a pro tip. Get them comfortable on the phone because, as you just said, look at those numbers, 200 to 500 emails a week versus a handful of phone calls. You're going to remember that, right? Well done. Okay, so you're going to mix it up. You're going to try different things. If you're on campus anyway, by a junior, you might be narrowing down. If you're on campus, go see them. Take the shot, right? The worst thing that a coach is going to do, if they're around, if they're not gone, the worst thing a coach is going to say to a kid who respectfully comes and knocks on the door and says, hey, I'm on campus, we've been communicating, is, thanks for coming. I really am so busy. I can't help you right now, but I'll get back to you. That's the worst thing, really.
It's the worst, and usually they'll just have an assistant show you around, right? Because that's what assistants are for. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. That is the worst. They're not going to start cursing at you and telling you that you're a terrible human being. I guarantee you that.
That's right. That's right. All right. So don't be afraid. Okay. All right. Let's round out our junior year. This is the most important year. Refine your emails, ask direct questions, try to get to a no so that you can allocate your resources properly. Secondly, be thoughtful about what kind of attention and traction you are getting. Do you have enough coaches in your, we'll call it your funnel, right? Do you have one that's showing interest? Do you have 5? Do you have 10? Do you have 20? And are they showing interest in a way that's moving the conversation forward? Or is it like, hey, come to our ID camp, which is okay, but not the best. Third, highlight video. Take the time, invest in it, make it sizzle, get coaches' butts in the seats to watch you play. Fourth, it's time to branch out from the emails. Elliot said this before, luck comes from doing the right things. Call on the phone, go to campus, knock on their doors, be personal, be yourself. Awesome 4 tips. As always, Elliot Leonard from RecruitFluency. That wraps up our junior year, and we will be back to talk about our senior year in the next episode. This is Coach Dave from the KidFirst Sports Podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.